Hi everybody. I'm coming to you from inside Spalding Creative Arts Slop Shop. The Slop Shop is located off of the breezeway between Library Lane and the parking lot to the Mansion East. It's a secret little door. 016 Mansion East is the official room number. There's a secret code to get in. I can give that code to you if you're one of my students. There's not much in here that you could disturb. It's not a pretty room. It used to be a room that we used for storage. It's pretty grimy, but it's perfect for doing paper mache and other dirty or sloppy projects. There's a sink, there's a first aid kit, and we do stock all the materials in here to do paper mache. If you need cardboard, hot glue, knives, rulers, things like that, you may have to get that from Studio 2, and you can talk to me about setting up to get that in here so that you can do your work. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you how to construct something out of cardboard and prepare it for paper mache. The construction is temporary that I'm going to show you today. Hot glue and masking tape will only last so long. The tape will peel off, the glue will fail, and that's why the paper mache is really the thing that'll give you all the strength. Now, I'm making this video in the context of my Design 2 course, and it would be the kind of thing that you could use to make the cardboard wheelie project or the cardboard chair project. It all kind of is the same construction. You may be watching this video in the context of a different workshop, but the principle is the same. Basically, you cut something out of cardboard in a rough style, you get it to hold together long enough that you can paper mache the outside. Once you get 3 or 4 layers of paper mache on there, and of course you have to let those dry for about 12 hours in between at the minimum. But once you get those 2 layers, 3, 4 layers of paper mache, maybe even 5, that thing's going to be rock solid and it'll be much more durable. The other nice thing about paper mache is that when it's all dry, it is very easy to paint it. It will accept paint very well. So, for this video, I'm going to show you how to do the cardboard construction, and then there will be a part 2 video where I will show you how to mix up and utilize paper mache. Okay, first things first, let's talk about different kinds of cardboard. You've probably already noticed that cardboard comes in all different thicknesses. This is pretty thin for corrugated cardboard, and it's pretty flimsy, not much strength there. This is still single layer cardboard here, but it's a little stronger, right? So you should always be on the lookout for how thick the cardboard is and how strong it is. And think about that when you're using it or building with it. I don't have any double layer cardboard here. This is just a box, but sometimes you will find cardboard that has 2 and even 3 layers. When you get up around 3 layers, you can barely cut it with a knife. You probably need a saw, but it's very, very strong. I save 3-layer cardboard for only when I need it the most, because it's hard to come by. Anyway, think about the different thicknesses of your cardboard, not only your sheets, but also your tubes. You're probably used to toilet paper or paper towel tubes. Even those can have a pretty distinct variety. This is very flimsy and not worth much of anything, whereas this one's a little stronger. I might actually use that one. Longer tubes are the same. Some longer tubes are very flimsy. Others can be a little thicker. That's got some strength to it, although if I started unrolling it, it wouldn't have much. These 2 tubes are good examples as well. That's much thicker, much stronger than a paper towel roll, as is this. Now, something else that I like about these is they nest one inside the other. For this project, I'm going to show you how to make a cardboard wheel, and this is going to be very, very useful. I'm going to use probably this roll for the inside of my axle. Now, here's an interesting, this fits a little smoother, but that would give me some friction, so I might not want to use that for my wheel because it wouldn't turn as well. There's a lot more play in that, or in that. So I'll probably use this as the sleeve and this as the axle of my wheel. All right, so if we're gonna make a cardboard wheel, the first thing we're gonna do is cut a big circle. Now, you might be lucky enough to have a circle that's the right size, and you could just trace it. Maybe you have a large compass, or a bucket or a bowl or something like that. That's great. If you don't, I'm going to show you a trick. I recommend when you're working in cardboard, unless you're doing fine detail work, you use a utility knife, and have one that's fairly sharp. This one's not too bad. You can also use an X-Acto knife if that's all you've got. That'll work too. Don't try to use scissors, and don't use anything that's too fancy and doesn't have a blade that you can change out, because cardboard and paper will dull a blade quicker than anything. If you've ever done sewing, you know that you never cut paper or cardboard with your tailor's scissors. All right, so I'm going to use this box as the basis for my wheel. But I want to get as much out of it as I can, and this cookie tin that I have isn't quite as big as I would like it to be. So here's an easy trick. Here's something I'm going to do. I'm going to use the fold to just cut a strip off of here, all right? And you're probably going to end up needing a ruler of some kind as well. So an easy way to draw a circle on something like this is you can first find the center point. And then, if you poke your pen or your pencil or whatever you want through the cardboard, and then you use something else to secure it in the center, I would usually use a nail. I don't happen to have one on me at the moment. Then you can just use that to draw a very easy circle. This also works if you have a strip of wood or an old yardstick is great for this. Yardsticks, old wooden yardsticks are great because they already have the measurements on them. All right, so now I have two sides of my wheel. I'm going to make a wheel that's double walled. So now I just have to cut these out. Now, pay attention, when I cut, I'm never going to cut towards my own hand. I'm always going to keep this hand away from whatever I'm working on. Anywhere else at this school, if you were cutting, I would want you to use a cutting mat, but these tables in here are pretty much trashed. So it's not going to really matter if you cut on them. This is not the room to do any kind of fine work in. This is the room that you're going to get stuff messed up on. And I had a little false start with my circle cutting there, but that's going to be all right. I didn't cut all the way through, so it'll be fine. All right, I'm going to set that cardboard aside. I've got my two wheels. Now, like I said before, I want to have a tube in the middle and then an axle so that the wheel can spin freely on something. So I'm going to use this as my tube in the center, and I'm going to leave it nice and long because I don't need to cut it right now. Might as well just leave it long. I'm going to measure that tube, and it looks like it's about 1.5 inches in diameter. I'm going to divide that in half, which is 3/4. 1.5 inches divided by 2 is 3/4. And I'm just going to make a quick mark on either side of my center point there, just to make sure that I'm close to having this axle in the middle. And then I can set that down on there and trace the part that I want to cut out. Now I could do the same thing on the other wheel, or I could just cut this out and trace it. So I've got my two halves of the wheel, and I can poke that through. Perfect. in good shape so far. Now, I'm going to want to make this wheel a little bit thicker. I don't want to just have a pizza cutter rolling around campus because it would get all dinged up. So what I'm going to do is plan to make this a little thicker, and then I'm going to build a tread onto it. All right? So the first thing I'm going to need are some spacers to space those two wheels apart. Now, this project that we're doing also involves making something that makes noise. So what I've done is I have planned out a little noisemaker. So I have some old rusty hardware in a tuna can, and then I have a little bit bigger can, and that makes a really nice resonator. Those things will make a good noise. And I happen to find a plastic lid that fits. So now I have that. My plan is to put this in the wheel. So I want my fins or my spacers to be at least as tall as this lid, maybe even a little bit taller. So, in case you aren't from this planet and you've never used a hot glue gun before, hot glue goes in from the back. This is the thicker kind. It comes in two different sizes. For this kind of work, I like the bigger kind of hot glue gun. And you will notice that the gun is red. Usually they come in red or blue. Blue means low temp, red means high temp or dual temp. This is a dual temp. I have it set to high because I want as much glue to come out as possible when I pull the trigger. I'm not going to use tons and tons of glue, but I don't want to fight with the gun. Now, I think when you're doing this kind of construction work, it's good to have the high temp gun, but I will tell you this, it will burn you. So be very careful. So now I have my axle sleeve cardboard piece, which will fit around the axle, and I'm going to use that for the center of the wheel. So I'm going to set that in there. And now I can start gluing my spokes in here. These don't have to be perfectly straight, but the straighter the better. And if I hold this here for a second or two, once that glue dries, it'll be ready to go. All right. We're on our way. Now what I want to do is make a tread, meaning the outside of that tablet shape. All right. Not too bad. I got one little bump. Makes a good noise. All right, so there's my wheel and it's ready for mache. It's already pretty sturdy, but that hot glue wouldn't last very long. So, got that going. Now let's make the frame. So I'm going to do something here and we'll see if it works. Sometimes I like to create an angle in a tube without cutting all the way through it. Yeah. And when you're cutting like this, sometimes you can just poke it like that. It's almost like sawing through it. Other side. So far so good, except I have to bend over pretty far to do this, and that wouldn't be comfortable if I wanted to walk it across campus like the project says. So I'm going to extend my handle. got my cardboard wheel, I got my handle, and next video, I'm going to mache these two parts independently, and then the last thing I would do before I started to wheel it across campus would be to put some kind of pin in there to keep that from sliding right off. Again, your designs should be much cooler and more interesting than this, but this is what we've got for today, just to show you how to do it. All right? So, if you don't have a hot glue gun, you can come in and work in here and I can get you one. And I also have hot glue sticks. If you only have a small hot glue gun, it'll still work. It just might take a little bit longer than you saw me do in the video. If you prefer not to use a hot glue gun and you want to use like craft glue or something like that, you could. Even Elmer's glue would work on cardboard. I would make sure that you can use the glue and tape things together so that everything stays in place until the glue dries. You want a nice solid object before you start macheing. Mache is wet, and that's why I think it's important to use glue and not just tape. Hot glue or craft glue, as long as it's dry, it'll hold up to that first layer of wet paper mache and it won't make the thing too lumpy. Now, one other structural concern that I want to show you that I didn't do in my demo because I didn't need it, but some of you may end up needing it, is if you were going to glue a tube to a post. So, for instance, if you wanted to glue something like this to a post for some reason, maybe this is your wheel and that's going to turn. Well, obviously just gluing that on there and macheing it, it'll stick, but any force is going to rip it off of there. So what I recommend is using some little triangles to reinforce it. So I just did this real quick, and all this is a tube glued to a flat piece of cardboard, and then I quickly cut out 4 little triangles and put that on there. Now, if I mached all of those joints where all of the different pieces meet, this thing would be rock solid and a nice little base for something, or if this were round, it could function as a wheel.